Hello, my friends. I'm Dennis Prager. Good to be with you, as always. A lot to talk to you about. But I begin with the unique, it's a good word for Ami Horowitz. He is unique, in the best sense, by the way. Video journalist. He has a new video. And it is about BLM. I watched the entire thing last night, so I am up to speed. Ami, I got a question. How did you get to meet heads of BLM?
Okay, so I will tell you, I'm comfortable telling you this. They did not think they were meeting with a guy named Ami Horowitz.
Okay, I hear you, but it's still effective. Anyway, I understand you don't want to give your modus operandi away. I found it remarkable that they opened up to you. And as you know,
by the way, it's not I got to be honest. It's not remarkable because they want to spew this vitriol and radicalism, and they're sitting like one of the founders of BLM, who I interviewed. She was interviewed by all the major mainstream media outlets. They're just never asked the question. They're willing to say it if you just ask them the right questions, but nobody has. That's the difference.
All right, so give an example of a question you asked that mainstream media do not ask.
For example, is the free market system writ large racist? Are you opposed to the free market system? Because the media will have you believe that BLM is not a Marxist organization. It's fact check false, they will tell you. But when you ask them, are you Marxist or against the free market, their answers are always yes. One of the founders said straight up, we are trained as Marxists. So that's just one of many, many, many examples of questions that I asked that the mainstream media won't ask. Or another shocking one.
Give some examples, because that's what people want to know.
Yeah, and by the way, important to note, it's one thing when you or I tell people what BLM is about, and then people then look and say, "Oh, it's just hyperbole. Oh, they're not for destroying all the systems." But it's much more powerful when they say it themselves to us, which is what I did in this video. The video is not me telling you about them; it's them telling us about them. But at the end of the day, they want to destroy and take down all of the systems, right? So when you ask them, and I did, do you believe in abolishing the prison system, the judicial system, the legal infrastructure? Their answers are yes, yes, and yes, because in their view, everything is racist. Everything is part of the white supremacist superstructure, and therefore we have to tear down. Not change, not reform, not agitate. We have to tear it all down. And when I asked them, is there a single system that you can think of that isn't replete with white supremacy? She thoughtfully thought about it for a few seconds on camera, and she goes, no, I can't think of anything at all.
Mm-hmm. You pointed out how much money they have been given. You want to repeat that for my listeners?
So we don't have an accurate number, but I'll tell you one number which will be eye-popping for a very small period of time. Between the last half of 2020, just the last half of 2020, The Economist said, which, by the way, is not in any way a right-wing magazine. In fact, it's left of center. They said it was over $10 billion with a B, Dennis, with a B. Now, they will tell you, well, we've only raised a few $1 million. It's an absolute bald-faced lie. They have one 501c3, which they have to disclose their money, and it's transparent, and they don't funnel most of the money through that. The money's funneled through other sources. But we don't have a very good handle at all on where this money is and where it's going. I'll tell you for sure where it's not going. Because chapters, so the way BLM, and by the way, one of the great lies, of the many great lies about Black Lives Matter, about the whitewashing of Black Lives Matter, is that there is no structure to Black Lives Matter, right? It's just a bunch of people. It's all grassroots. It's nonsense. They have senior leadership. They have chapters which report to senior leadership, right? And I interviewed one of the heads of the main chapters and also part of the senior leadership. And many of the chapters have revolted, saying, we're not seeing a dime of this money. You're raising billions and we're getting nothing. So it's a great question of where that money is. I mean, look, it's an entirely new documentary beyond the resources that I have for it. But it's a story for somebody. I mean, 60 Minutes would be a great place to do it, but you're never going to see that story out there.
It is hard to hide billions of dollars. I mean, how do we know $1 billion or more has been given?
Again, the Economist is the source for that.
Right, and they note that overwhelmingly it's coming from corporations.
Correct. Yeah, of course. Well, there's a lot of individuals who've donated tremendous amounts of money. But yeah, one of the most fascinating parts of this Black Lives Matter story is how corporations have supported and, in fact, partnered with Black Lives Matter. But Dennis, Black Lives Matter exists to eliminate them. That's their goal, right? They want to destroy the free market system. Yet these people, it's so funny. Marx was so right when he said about giving capitalists the rope to hang themselves.
Yeah, it was actually Lenin, but it doesn't matter. The point is taken. Yeah, it was Lenin.
You know what? Actually, now that you remind me, you've actually made that point before that it's been misattributed to Marx. You've said that on the air before. But yes, and he is completely and totally right. And this is the perfect example. You've made the point over and over again, and I don't know why people aren't listening. Corporations are not conservative. They're just not. And this is an example of how they are willing to do whatever it takes to make sure. And the reason why, by the way, yes, a lot of these CEOs are left of center. Some are even leftist, certainly the tech industry. But the reason why they cater to the left more than the right is because the left have always been supporters of blackmail.
Sorry about
Dennis, you there?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yep.
They've always been supporters of blackmail and of boycott, and the right has them. And by the way, I've also agreed that we shouldn't be using boycott as a tool. Although now I've begun to change my mind because I see how effective it is when Black Lives Matter walks to the CEO of a corporation, whether it be Nike or Levi's or whoever or Coca-Cola, and they say, "Look, you better toe this line." They do, and this is an example of how
protection
effective
money.
Oh, it's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is.
Well, they don't fear the right. No corporation fears the right. In this country, as I've said often, there's much more fear of left than fear of God, let alone fear of right. So the transfer of billions of dollars to BLM, I really do wonder, not because of even moral reasons, though, because it's an immoral organization to begin with, but I wonder out of curiosity where that money went. I mean, we know that one of them, right, bought a few houses. Yeah. But yes. There's just X number of houses you could buy with billions of dollars. I just don't know where it has gone.
Well, and that's the problem. We just don't know. Now, would I assume that a lot of it went to line their pockets? Yes. Sitting in some account somewhere that we can't find? Yes. I do. I would bet money on that, pun intended. But we don't know what other nefarious. Look, I will tell you this: that when I went to the riots, and I probably went to 15 to 20 actual riots and probably 25, 30 protests over the course of the year while I embedded with Black Lives Matter. And these things cost money, a lot of money. Because when you go to, again, you are talking about busloads of people who are being brought in to these areas of conflict. They have pre-made weapons that they're handing out to people. Of course, signs, tons and tons of signs. These things, this organization costs money. So I have no doubt that a lot of that money went into pushing, creating, and supporting the riots all around the country.
Do you have any reason to believe that there is any contact between BLM and Antifa?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Of course. Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that. Every single Black Lives Matter riot, every single one of them had major Antifa major Antifa people who were there at the protest.
Oh, that's very interesting. Hold on with that. All right, you can see this at DennisPrager.com, the documentary, the interviews with BLM leaders by Ami Horowitz, up at DennisPrager.com. We continue.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
And so, Don, a question I get a lot, and where people are emailing us, freedom@charliekirk.com right now, is how is your family holding up in the midst of this? How is your father holding up? I mean, after delivering results for our country, doing everything he said he was going to do, people kind of take me aside. They say, hey, how are they hanging in there? Any insight you can give us, Don, into that?
Yeah, listen, we're doing well. Maybe because we're a bit masochistic, we sort of like to be in the fight, and more importantly, because the fight is worth it. I mean, you brought up opening this thing. My book, Liberal Privilege, like it's literally about all of these things. Whether it's the sort of faulty persecutions, whether it's the ongoing aspects of this. I mean, look at what's going on. Even take January 6th, okay, and say what you want about it. Like if you commit a crime, you should commit a crime, but the FBI and the highest levels of law enforcement, anyone who is, if you are within about 2,000 miles of Washington, D.C., and you're a conservative, it's like the FBI is putting have you seen this man? He was seen somewhere within 1,500 miles of D.C. that day. Let's find him. But 13, 14 months of looting, of arson, burning our cities down, taking over buildings. Charlie, I've been told that that's insurrection. I've been told that's insurrection, and yet there doesn't seem to be any interest in looking into that insurrection. It's total pass. And this is how disgusting it's been. And that's my point. I guess we have to stay in the fight. We have to be engaged. You and I both understand how much of a disadvantage you are in if you're a conservative. You understand you get no help from the mainstream media. You get no help from print media. You get no help from social media. Frankly, they're working actively against us.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Men and women died in Vietnam or the other wars that we fought for our flag.
Hey, what a great call. What a great point that is. To disrespect those men who spilled blood, who left their limbs on the battlefield, the way the left is doing. Chris, you're on the Mike Gallagher Show. How you doing, Chris?
Good, Mike. It's a nice honor to talk to you finally.
Oh, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Honor to speak to you as well.
Mike, I'll make this real quick. I'm probably not all that great at talking on air, but all I am is a lifeguard on the ocean front in southeast North Carolina.
Right.
And I just want to say that, this weekend we had outstanding weather. The crowds were fantastic. Everyone was just well behaved.
Wow.
And Mike, I was on my tower and I was looking north, and I saw the thousands and thousands of people with their umbrellas, thousands of people in the water just enjoying. The kids were playing. The kids were running around, and happy cries and screams were going on. Mike, in my binoculars, you got to picture this. You got the city line and the beach and the ocean. But in my binoculars, I saw all of this going on, and then in the center was the American flag waving, and Mike, it just brought me to tears sitting in my tower watching this, and just thinking about all the people who disrespect our flag, and like your last caller, all the men who died for this country. It just brought me to tears sitting on the tower watching all this going on.
And you know what? You got to keep reminding yourself, millions and millions of Americans feel just the way you and I do. Chris, we're not alone. We're not in the minority.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and
A word about Sierra Pacific Mortgage. Andrew and Todd are the gentlemen at andrewandtodd.com with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. And if you are considering with the extraordinary rates that exist today, if you are considering a refi, a new purchase, a cash out refi, or a reverse mortgage, I recommend these people unequivocally. They have been with me from the first day of the lockdown. They were among the few people working at the time. They immediately engendered great respect in me for them. I finally met them a couple of months ago. Wonderful men, honest, capable. People write to me how much they enjoyed working with them. AndrewandTodd.com, or you can call them at 888-888-1172. AndrewandTodd.com with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. You are in good hands with these guys. Speaking to Ami Horowitz, who has a new video out. He puts them out regularly. They're all terrific. He's a very gutsy guy. His wife would think he's more than gutsy. He borders on the... what would your wife say? You border on the what?
Insane.
Okay.
That word comes up in my household more than once.
I understand. And the latest is Inside Black Lives Matter, a BLM expose. I asked you at the end of the last segment about ties between Antifa and BLM. Go ahead.
Yeah, so literally every riot that I went to had a massive Antifa presence. They were, I would say that of the people who were engaged in the rioting or in support of the rioting, it seemed to be about 50% of them were Antifa related. Now, of course, they don't broadcast themselves as Antifa, but they wear the uniform. And you can also tell because they're hyper-aggression. It's obvious that it's dangerous to be in these situations for me to cover these things, but while I was there, I was attacked by them. The only good thing about wearing a mask was that it does obscure your face a little bit, but somebody even recognized me while wearing a mask. And in Portland, I was attacked with people throwing shards of glass at me. When I was in Minneapolis during the riots there was a gentleman, an older man, and this is actually, we caught this on video, and it's obviously in the short doc, but a man was outside his home trying to protect his home from the arson that was happening and looting all around in his neighborhood. And two young thugs attacked him with stones and a stick, and the adrenaline kind of kicked in. I had to run and grab these guys and pull them off this guy because there's no doubt that we would have witnessed and filmed a murder if we didn't intervene. I mean, the darkness of what was happening, Dennis, there is nothing more traumatic than witnessing great American cities on fire. I mean, it is trauma that will sit with me for the rest of my life. And Black Lives Matter and Antifa in a supporting role were, in fact, the people who were creating, pushing, and sponsoring these riots.
There's a headline today in Daily Wire: Black Lives Matter faces massive backlash over deplorable, insane statement on Cuba. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with the statement on Cuba.
Black Lives Matter, which was founded by Marxists, exactly what you have noted and is in your documentary, responded to the crisis in Cuba by blaming the United States for the suffering that the Cuban people have endured at the hands of the island's communist dictatorship. That statement comes after pro-democracy demonstrators waved American flags and protested for freedom. Black Lives Matter condemns the U.S. federal government's inhumane treatment of Cubans and urges it to immediately lift the economic embargo the group claimed. So.
Oh, that's precious. That is precious. Yeah, Black Lives Matter. So it's interesting. Black Lives Matter, the people behind the organization are very smart. The organization has now begun to pivot and morph. So Black Lives Matter as an organization has, in fact, begun to wane in its popularity, thankfully. But what they've done is interesting and insidious. So they've moved into the political sphere. So now you see the banner of Black Lives Matter being picked up by the politicians. In some cases, they actually have Black Lives Matter members who are now members of Congress, but certainly within the squad and the leftist part of Black Lives Matter, they have picked up their mantle and have given them the voice of the organization. They have also moved through critical race theory into our schools and our military. Critical race theory would not have happened or come up if it wasn't for Black Lives Matter. If BLM didn't exist in 2020, we would not be discussing CRT. CRT, the progenitor of modern CRT today came from the Black Lives Matter movement. So they had very interestingly morphed from a kind of organization like in 2020, which was actually able to take action into, in my view, far more insidious, far more far-reaching ways of getting involved in our lives, because they do, in fact, see that their popularity has been waning. So they did make that interesting transition.
Do you foresee a return to having BLM on the pitcher's mound at a Major League Baseball game?
The answer is yes, because all we need to do, remember, let's remember what Black Lives Matter is based upon. It's based upon a blood libel, right? The blood libel that police officers are killing unarmed black men across the country, which is, as you've noted before, and I've said before, is simply an untruth, right? In 2020, there were a little more than a dozen unarmed black people who were killed by police. And if you look into each one of those, and I have, the vast majority of those 14 or 16, depending on your count, were examples of either a horrific mistake or the person who was at that time technically unarmed was trying to either grab the weapon of the police officer or trying to hurt the police officer, just like Michael Brown is a perfect example of that. So while I don't see it happening right now, all you need is one other killing to spark another BLM movement, and I think all of these sheep in sports will move right back into Black Lives Matter, even though the popularity has in fact waned.
On a personal note, I don't know, are you a sports fan generally?
Massive.
Good.
Massive.
That's perfect, and the question is apt. Has the sheep-like cowardice of Major League sports affected your interest in sports?
In sports in general, but even more, it has affected my love of certain teams. And a great example is it's very hard for me to root for the Lakers, my Lakers. By the way, another point, it's not worthy of the air right now. I have a bone to pick about your theories on sports and whether or not when you move cities you change sports teams. It's an absolutely insane,
that is
idea.
Awesome. Just for that, I'm keeping you on. That was very insidious of you to make that point when I was about to say goodbye. Ami Horowitz's video is up at DennisPrager.com.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
If you're longing for a place that feels like pre-pandemic America, I'll tell you right now, Las Vegas is one of them. What's your community? Well, tell me what your town is like and how you would respond to being in a theater with 1,800 other people, elbow to elbow. Here's Mike. What's the upstate of South Carolina, Mike, life like, Mike?
Mike, it is wide open for business, baby. We are rocking and rolling, and we cannot get enough people to work. So come on down here and grab yourself a job.
I love it. That makes me happy. Coming back to work makes me happy. Thank you, Mike.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Joe Biden was sold as a moderate. People that had worked with Joe Biden back in the day said, "Oh, I've known Joe for years. He's okay. He's fine."
Listen, when he got the hair plugs, he flipped. A long time ago, he was bald as an egg, and he got hair plugs. And I believe those hair plugs were from a Chinese lab in the Wuhan province, and things started to go screwy, and he flipped.
So he said. I don't know that that's true. I think he hid maybe who he was for a long time. A lot of liberals did in the 70s.
Wait. First of all, he's nobody. He has no values. Let's not kid ourselves. He's not a Marxist. He is a husk of a person, and he will just do. That's the whole point of your article at townhall.com. People are running him and steering him, and he doesn't have the whisper of what we would call courage or conviction.
Right. Well, and because he can't get the stuff kicked out fast enough. I mean, they've attacked so many different areas of culture and life all at once, and I think this is part of the blowback that is causing parental communities to rise up. You know, one of the things I'm most excited about, to be candid, out of all this, is to see the growth of middle-class black parents debating CRT to their own school boards. There's something very powerful about a father and a mother, married black couple, living in a suburb and being part of a community, and saying to a school board, what you're in essence trying to do is teach my child to be a racist.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Don't you get tired of commercials screaming at you to buy gold now with inflated promises on future values? In an unregulated industry, you need honest, real experts to give you solid advice to protect your wealth and top picks on the best coins and bullion based on real-time data and historical trends. For example, as environmental policy becomes a hot topic, one precious metal that's been significantly undervalued for years is potentially set to surge. Nick Grovich, owner of AmFed Coin and Bullion, has long recommended this precious metal. Up to 600,000 ounces of this rare metal will be needed by 2030 to produce green hydrogen. Nick is doubling down on this pick, and you should too. Call Nick at AmFed Coin and Bullion to find out more. I've been friends with Nick for years, and he's my go-to guy when it comes to coins and bullion. I trust him. He is a good and very knowledgeable man. Call Nick at 800-221-7694. 800-221-7694, AmericanFederal.com, AmericanFederal.com. Not one mistake. All right. So a final question, and it's a serious one. I won't deal with the what team you root for. We'll do that another time. It is an interesting question. Do you root for the team you grew up with or the team of the city you moved to? And it's one of the most urgent matters in life. Nevertheless, we return to earth and the question, and it's a very serious one. Given your love of sports, how has their cowardice and anti-American positions and pro-hate group, the hate group, BLM, affected your passions with regard to your teams?
It's tempered it quite a bit, and it's made it difficult for me to watch, particularly basketball. Right, baseball less so, although they've all been cowards. But basketball in particular, because not only has the league been outspoken, but the players have as well. So LeBron James is one of the best players for the LA Lakers, which is my team, and this man is anti-Semitic. He has pushed incorrect racial incidents and trying to make them something they're not. He's been very difficult for me to follow, and he's one of the main players of my team. It's been it's been. I know people laugh at it, but it's been very difficult. You know, it's a large
I
part
don't
of what
laugh
gives
at
me
all.
joy in life.
I exactly right. The left's ability to ruin everything obviously is extended now to sports, and I don't have the same passion. I'm a big hockey fan, but hockey has been the least affected. So I feel for you. It's I don't know. It's a silly thing. It's like losing a pet. You know, it you can go on in life, obviously, but it's painful to be unable to continue to root for a team that you've rooted for your whole life. This is a loss. I do. I'm not joking, and you know when I joke. I feel for you and many others. Do you know, and I can't get an answer from anybody on this, so maybe it's not knowable, but has the NBA been affected?
Yeah, the ratings for all the sports have been down, which you wouldn't think so, because when we came out of the pandemic, we were sports were on pause for months on end. There was a massive wellspring of people wanting to engage and watch sports again after not having it for so long. Yet when it came back, and they came back so woke, the ratings were down significantly. Even across the NFL, which is the most popular sport in America. It has very much affected their ratings, but it did not change their behavior, which is so interesting. Now, again, in these last few months, they've pulled back on their wokeness because it's just no longer in the public eye, not because they changed their position. So it has rebounded a bit.
Major League Baseball moving the All-Star game from Atlanta, where there is now a suit by, what is the name of our terrific group? Job Creators Network is suing them for $100 million because they had no right to take the game away and deprive so many people in Georgia of a living. But, so I wondered, did Coors Field fill up? Like, do people not give a hoot about what MLB did?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Although I'll say one of the more actually interesting, talking about sports and BLM, one of the most interesting moments in this in this little documentary I made, and I by the way, I rarely when I come on the show tell people got to watch this video, got to watch it, but this is a video you got to see it to believe it. I mean, you really have to watch it to believe it.
Inside Black Lives Matter, a BLM expose. It is up at DennisPrager.com. Go ahead.
But one of the more interesting moments was when I said to her, she was talking about how the free market basically is creating a slave culture, and she used the word slave culture, that it's unpaid wages. She kept saying that this is pushing unpaid wages. And I said, well no, wait a second. Now remember, I can't push back on her in the moment because she thinks I'm somebody else. But I did say, no, well, hold on a second. There's one area where black people get paid more than white people, which is sports,
right? You mentioned that, yes.
And she looked at me, she smiled, and said, there's a book that everybody should read. It's called The $40 Million Slave.
Yes. I sat there like I had entered the Twilight Zone. $40 million a year slaves.
Yes.
I am prepared. I am prepared personally to enter such slavery.
Where do I sign up?
That's
Dennis?
right.
Where
anyway,
do I sign up?
You did more great work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. By the way, Colin, I'm very curious how those of you who love sports have dealt with the anti-American, America-hating nature of the cowards who run baseball, football, and basketball. 1-8-PRAGER-776. ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384. Relief Factor is a non-prescription medicine, I don't know what word to use, supplement that you can take, I think, indefinitely. And it is incredibly effective against joint and muscle pain. Try it for 3 weeks for just $20 at ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Anyway, you were
talking about Bill Cosby, and I kind of disagreed with you about, you were saying about all the women. I might say maybe what is it, 18 women?
Oh no, it's close to 50 women that have made allegations.
50?
50, 50.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you believe all of them are
Well,
telling the truth?
you think all 50 are lying, including Beverly Johnson, one of the first black major models in America? She said he also gave her drugs and tried to rape her.
I'm a woman, and what I'm saying is, and they're in Hollywood. He's a high-profile man,
mm-hmm.
and they wanted to be alone with him. They might not have wanted his advances, but it's kind of
Lynn, please. There's no doubt that because he was famous and rich, he attracted women. The question is, did he drug them and have sex with them? And that's known as rape.
And the question is, let me answer that. That's what I'm saying. If they drank anything that he had,
right,
they willingly drink it.
Okay. Now, Lynn, hold on a second. The reason Bill Cosby got released is because the prior prosecutor apparently entered into some sort of deal with him and said, you're not going to be criminally prosecuted if you testify honestly in the civil trial. And in the civil trial, years ago, he testified and admitted that he gave that particular woman a drug in order to have sex with her. He admitted it under oath.
One woman. Okay, one woman. Yes, but not.
How many does it take?
Well, I just saying, I know I'm a woman. I know women. I'm not saying some of it didn't happen, but some of them are scorned because they thought they was going to get something out of it.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
What is your message to those who think this isn't a big deal or who feel cowed and intimidated? What do you say to them?
Anytime you say something like what I'm about to say, I'm sure it can be abused and misused, so I'll be very careful in how I say it. I've never read Hitler's Mein Kampf, but I've picked it up recently in the past week because I'm interested in learning everything I can about history. After spending just a day with his Mein Kampf, the spirit and essence of his race hatred that shows up in that book, a set of two books, is very similar to what I'm seeing show up in How to Be an Anti-Racist.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Want to
And we have a link to Helping Larry Elder, who is my colleague and friend for many, many, many years, run against Gavin Newsom, or at least if Gavin Newsom is removed, and he run against him should he not be removed. In any event, he is running for governor of California, and he needs your help. So there's a piece in the LA Times, of an opinion hit piece on Larry Elder. When I tell you that every leftist lies, otherwise they wouldn't be a leftist. Liberals tell the truth and lie. Conservatives tell the truth and lie. But every leftist lies. I know of no exception. There might be. But I don't know. You cannot believe in truth and be a leftist. That has been true from Lenin to the Los Angeles Times. So here's an example. Okay, unlike them, I give specifics. So here's a hit piece on Larry Elder. The entire hit piece is filled with accusations, none of which are supported by facts. For example, in a piece by Jean Guerrero, she's more than welcome to come on this program at any time. She apparently writes an opinion column, hit pieces for the Los Angeles Times. He has repeatedly, this is Larry Elder, twisted crime statistics to portray black people as more violent than whites, a theme for white supremacists. So Larry Elder, who is black, provides a theme for white supremacists. So note, she does not ask the question, is it true? Is it true is not a left-wing question. I know this sounds like just, some sort of partisan attack. I'm either lying to you or I'm telling you the truth. Is that clear? I can't be more forward. You shouldn't listen to me if what I'm saying is not true. That this is what the left does routinely. They lie because they don't ask, is it true? Here's a perfect example in today's lying Los Angeles Times. Larry Elder repeatedly twisted crime statistics to portray black people as more violent than whites. So is it twisted or is it true? Correct? There is no alternative. Either Larry Elder twists statistics and lies about blacks' violence, or I am lying to you about Larry Elder twisting the truth. Correct? Either she, Jean Guerrero of the LA Times, is lying or Larry Elder is lying. That's it. So you can click on the word twist. It's underlined. You click on it. And you get Larry Elder statistics. You get no argument that he twisted them. You are a liar if you deny that proportionately blacks are more likely to engage in violent crime than whites. You are a liar, which means you qualify to be on the left. That's it. It has nothing to do with white supremacy. Nothing. It has a zero. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just a fact. Facts are facts. Do with it what you want. There is a crime problem in black life. Whom do you help by lying about it? Whom do you help? Do you help blacks, who are overwhelmingly the victims of black crime? Whom do you help? The left doesn't give a damn about blacks. They don't give a damn about Jews. They don't give a damn about Hispanics. They don't give a damn about Asian Americans. They give a damn about power. That's all the left wants is power. What do we have already this year? What is it? 1 million illegal immigrants have come in. How many have come in? What was the report last night on Fox, on Tucker Carlson? It's an incredible number. And then now they send them into largely Republican states or purple states. Not to vote, they can't vote, but to raise the number of people in the census so that they get more people in Congress from Democratic states. The left will ruin the United States. It is ruining the United States for its power. It's a sick, sick movement. There is no movement of self-hatred and loathing like leftist in the United States. There's close, left in Canada, left in Australia, left in New Zealand. The left in the English-speaking countries is particularly despicable. Anyway, they lied about Larry Elder. Larry Elder didn't lie about statistics on black crime. The whole thing's a lie. President Obama lied about Ferguson, giving Ferguson as an example of police racist brutality. His own Justice Department cleared the officer involved. Michael Brown wasn't killed because he was black. Michael Brown in Ferguson, he was killed because he was trying to kill an officer.
We have a great video that Larry did on that.
Oh, we have how ironic, I forgot. We have a video at PragerU by Larry Elder on Ferguson. Watch that, folks. There's more truth at PragerU in a week than in the LA Times in 10 years. The LA Times is another lying newspaper. And they don't care because they never ask, is it true? They ask, is it an effective weapon against conservatives? Is it true is not a left-wing question. It's a liberal question. It's a conservative question. He twisted statistics, but she gives zero evidence. They never do. They never do. Oh, and then it cracks me up. They just quote each other. She quotes the Southern Poverty Law Center, who characterized, characterized David Horowitz as an anti-Muslim, anti-immigrant extremist. Citing the Southern Poverty Law Center is somewhat like citing the Ku Klux Klan about blacks. Southern Poverty Law Center is a hate group. We have a video on them. BLM is a hate group, and Antifa is the closest we have to Hitler Youth in American history, or since World War II. Yep, a lot more truth on this program than in any day's LA Times. I wish it weren't true. It's true. 1-8-PRAGER 776, The Dennis Prager Show.
Don't you get tired of commercials screaming at you to buy gold now with inflated promises on future values? In an unregulated industry, you need honest, real experts to give you solid advice to protect your wealth and top picks on the best coins and bullion based on real-time data and historical trends. For example, as environmental policy becomes a hot topic, one precious metal that's been significantly undervalued for years is potentially set to surge. Nick Grovich, owner of AmFed Coin and Bullion, has long recommended this precious metal. Up to 600,000 ounces of this rare metal will be needed by 2030 to produce green hydrogen. Nick is doubling down on this pick, and you should too. Call Nick at AmFed Coin and Bullion to find out more. I've been friends with Nick for years, and he's my go-to guy when it comes to coins and bullion. I trust him. He is a good and very knowledgeable man. Call Nick at 800-221-7694, 800-221-7694, AmericanFederal.com, AmericanFederal.com. Not one mistake.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
I had studied Marxist history, beginning with Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto from 1848. And when I first studied that and saw in section 1 of the manifesto what you can recognize as what's called the oppressor versus oppressed narrative of human history, a whole bunch of stuff that was taking place in our country began to become exceptionally clear to me. And I began to piece together a lot of the what I'll call militant impulse that was manifesting in society as time went on. And there's a victimhood ideology. There's constantly an effort by some individuals who have an agenda to pit groups of people against one another as victims or oppressed groups and oppressor groups. And we've seen very clearly over the past calendar year who the oppressor group is labeled to be and who the oppressed groups are labeled to be. And right now, under the auspices of diversity and inclusion training, as well as critical race theory and other narratives of American history that have been parading about throughout the country and showing up in our education system, all of those narratives seek to divide the American people by pitting people against one another into racial groups.
Yeah, it's
the white versus the black. It
used to be class, division by class. Now it's division by race, by skin color. We've only begun to scratch the surface. We're going to go deep dive on what's happening inside the U.S. military and why this man took the courageous step of writing the book, Irresistible Revolution.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager. I'm going to tell you an interesting little anecdote. A columnist of the LA Times called me to interview me about Larry Elder running. And I would say we were on for about 20 minutes. And so his piece is up today. And the only mention of me is fellow conservative talk show host Dennis Prager called and asked him, that is Larry Elder, to run. That is it. That's fine. I don't have any issue with it. None whatsoever. My desire to be cited in the LA Times is approximately your desire to collect bees while wearing a swimsuit. So the interesting thing is that we had this extensive interview and not a word in his column. And I'll tell you why. I know how to talk to leftist reporters. I can do it in my sleep. What you do is you give them not one line that they could wrench out of context to portray you negatively. You give them line after line that is so effective that they can't quote you without being self-damning. I'm good at it. So there was nothing they could quote me on. When the New York Times wrote a piece on me, one of its pieces, it lied about me. It said, Prager suggested about something way in the past. Not important to point out what it is. Without quote marks and without the word said. So, for example, I said to him that leftists fear debating conservatives and that I would pay thousands and thousands of dollars. I would raise it for any of these guys to debate Larry Elder, for example, Ibram X. Kendi, Ta-Nehisi Coates. Not a word about that in the column in the LA Times today. I would get $10,000 for a charity if Tom Friedman of the New York Times debated me. He would never debate me. I have more name recognition than Tom Friedman. It's not even close. But he wouldn't. They're afraid to debate conservatives because everything they say is rooted in irrationality and lies. And ours isn't. And I wasn't quoted once.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
I had studied Marxist history, beginning with Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto from 1848. And when I first studied that and saw in section 1 of the manifesto what you can recognize as what's called the oppressor versus oppressed narrative of human history, a whole bunch of stuff that was taking place in our country began to become exceptionally clear to me. And I began to piece together a lot of the what I'll call militant impulse that was manifesting in society as time went on. And there's a victimhood ideology. There's constantly an effort by some individuals who have an agenda to pit groups of people against one another as victims or oppressed groups and oppressor groups. And we've seen very clearly over the past calendar year who the oppressor group is labeled to be and who the oppressed groups are labeled to be. And right now, under the auspices of diversity and inclusion training, as well as critical race theory and other narratives of American history that have been parading about throughout the country and showing up in our education system, all of those narratives seek to divide the American people by pitting people against one another into racial groups.
Yeah, it's
the white versus the black. It
used to be class, division by class. Now it's division by race, by skin color. We've only begun to scratch the surface. We're going to go deep dive on what's happening inside the U.S. military and why this man took the courageous step of writing the book Irresistible Revolution. Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lohmeyer.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Some lawyer hit a little girl.
The community is left in shock as former cancer patient Sharon Blackwell was struck
by an oncoming vehicle.
Take this into evidence, sir.
I need to call my wife.
You've been accused of texting while driving.
If we don't make an example out of this guy, the public will crucify us. Before you take your daughter off life support, give God room to be God.
You're not guaranteed another day, but you have today.
Get back or I'll shoot you.
Only one's left inside for the pastor and his 2 daughters.
If you run, I'll shoot your family. Nobody cares whether I live or die. It's bad.
I'm not going to stand around and be a part of it anymore. Give me the gun.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Las Vegas, I mean, it is open for business. It is wide open. It's unreal how different things are in a place like Las Vegas. I mean, somebody look up, Derek, see how many seats the O show at the Bellagio holds. How many seats are in that theater? The show is called O at the Bellagio. See how many seats it holds. It was packed. I mean, there's no social distancing going on in Las Vegas. There just isn't. Now, does that disturb you? Or does that make you happy? Does it bother you to know that there are communities that, like Las Vegas, that have a theater that I sat in and was in amazement at the Las Vegas production of O at the Bellagio with 1,800 seats, and it was packed. It was sold out. There weren't seats between other seats. There weren't empty seats blocked out with stupid X marks. And incidentally, on the topic of Las Vegas, may I respectfully suggest a must-see show if you like Vegas like I do. I don't do a whole lot of gambling. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I love the theaters, the shows. I love the hotels. I love the restaurants. I love the vibe of Las Vegas. The Magic of Jen Kramer at the Westgate is a must-see.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Great. We've had 6 months of the new administration. It is the farthest thing from moderation that the government has ever seen, and it is the fastest track to extremism that we've ever had elected.
But Kevin, how did I know that in advance? Why in my debate
because
with
I
David
told you.
French did I know this and you knew this? There was no question in my mind. So the fact that this has now happened, you know, part of me wants to say, ha ha, but it's just too sad to say ha ha. This is something that I warned against and you warned against and others warned against because we knew that the consequences are devastating.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Topic. Yesterday,
General Milley told a congressional hearing that there is no chance, not no chance, very.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager. America was founded, the only country in the world thus far, founded on the principle of limited government. Because, as I put it many years ago, we even made a bumper sticker about it. The bigger the government, the smaller the citizen. This was the great American belief. The individual is sacrosanct. Take care of yourself, your family, your community. The government will simply be there to enable you to be free. That is the purpose of government, to protect your freedom. The left loathes freedom. These are not throwaway lines, my friends. There is no example in history of the left supporting freedom. So, the reason any of you would reject that is you don't want to confront it. I can't do anything about that. If truth matters to you, no, freedom is not a left-wing value. It has not been since the French Revolution to Lenin to the New York Times today, or your local university, or now elementary school. Okay? It is just not. It's an American value. Liberty in God we trust, e pluribus unum. The left hates all three aspects. I make that clear in my book, Still the Best Hope. I think it's the clearest explanation of the left and America, and for that matter, Islamism, that is written. And there are many fine books on it. I'm not the only one, but I think it's the clearest. Still the best hope. What turned this young woman that I've been having on each week and who will be on shortly again, this Harvard student, turned her around, that book. What the Democrats wish to pass now, $3.5 trillion plus the $500 billion that they've already passed, $3.5 trillion, sneaking it through like they sneaked through Obamacare. What is the name of that process? Reconciliation. It's unbelievable. You don't have the votes and you can still do it. This will transform the United States of America. The New Deal, Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, and Joe Biden's final nail in the coffin of small government. I hate to be this negative. I do. A lot of people don't want to hear it, and I don't blame you. I don't blame you. The desire to tune out. You know why I don't tune out? I owe it to the guys at Normandy Beach not to tune out. I owe it to everybody who died for the liberty of this country and the world to fight. That's why I don't. They could die for liberty, but I can't annoy myself and fight for it. Nobody's asking me to die. So you got to fight, my friends, or at least help the fighters. Wall Street Journal, the price of Republicans losing those 2 Georgia Senate seats in January was always going to be steep. And late Tuesday, that's 2 days ago, Democrats presented America with the bill, $4.1 trillion. You know how much $4 trillion is? $4,000 billion. $1 billion is a lot of money. By the way, that was why I was annoyed with people I adored, like like President Trump and others. And I said it on the radio, to no avail, I might add. Please, do not be preoccupied now with the presidential election. Be preoccupied with Georgia. We cannot lose both seats in Georgia. That is more important than fighting the last election. And I beg people in Georgia, I have a lot of listeners in Georgia, please vote, please vote. But they were so angry at the allegations of fraud. And by the way, Fulton County has had a ballot stealing just the other night. It was very strange. From a warehouse. A lot of very fishy things going on. But you know what, my friends? Life, you fight battles with priorities. The priority was Georgia. But people are emotional, not rational, even including on our side. That's how much in new taxes and spending President Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Nancy Pelosi hope to ram through Congress. With the narrowest majorities in decades. Senate Democrats announced that they've agreed on a top-line budget resolution total of $3.5 trillion. They hope to pass this with 50 Senate Democrats plus Vice President Kamala Harris to break the tie. That's in addition to the $600 billion or so in net spending in the bipartisan infrastructure framework. The ability of the Democrats to play Republicans like a yo-yo is astonishing. Yes, work with us on a $600 billion infrastructure bill. And the Republicans thought, good, okay, we'll stop there. So now they got the $600 billion infrastructure bill and the $3.1 trillion human infrastructure bill. Don't believe that this is a compromise from the $6 trillion that Mr. Sanders floated some weeks ago. That was a feint to make the final number appear more moderate. This would be the largest spending increase in American history, and a huge increase in the size and scope of government. It would lift federal spending as a share of gross domestic product to more than 25% from the modern norm of 20 to 21%. Democrats are going for broke, literally. Any American who qualifies will get the cash for universal pre-K, paid family leave, a new federal child care program, free community college, and more. Democrats will start these programs small, but they will grow inexorably into huge claims on the Treasury, and they will be politically impossible to reform or repeal. You know why, my friends? There is a drug that is more difficult to wean oneself away from than heroin. This is not an exaggeration. I know something about addiction, not because I was, but some loved ones I know have been. It is easier, as hard as it is, to become sober, to get off heroin addiction, than to get off free benefits addiction. When you get used to getting something for free, you are almost incapable of paying for it later. The resolution will also underwrite a vast climate agenda, including green energy subsidies running into the hundreds of billions. What a racket. It's all a racket. All these green energy companies getting billions. What a deal. You know what? You want to solve all your environmental and water problems? Build desalination plants and nuclear power plants. That's it. But they don't want to solve. They're corrupt. They want to line their pockets. And the true believers in the environmentalist movement, these people believe in their cause no less than the most committed evangelical believes in Christ. Democrats plan more money as well for permanently higher Obamacare subsidies. Teachers' unions. Teachers' unions. Teachers' unions are as close as we have as organized evil in this country. The harm that they have done to children and continue to do, and to this country, and their corruption. The leading Democrat, one of the 3 leading Democrats in California 20 years ago, said to me, because we knew each other well, the teachers union runs California. We return. I'm Dennis Prager.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Men and women died in Vietnam or the other wars that we fought for our flag.
Hey, what a great call. What a great point that is. To disrespect those men who spilled blood, who left their limbs on the battlefield the way the left is doing. Chris, you're on The Mike Gallagher Show. How you doing, Chris?
Good, Mike. It's a nice honor to talk to you finally.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Honor to speak to you as well.
Mike, I'll make this real quick. I'm probably not all that great at talking on air, but all I am is a lifeguard on the ocean front in southeast North Carolina.
Right.
And I just want to say that, this weekend we had outstanding weather. The crowds were fantastic. Everyone was just well behaved.
Wow.
And Mike, I was on my tower and I was looking north, and I saw the thousands and thousands of people with their umbrellas, thousands of people in the water just enjoying. The kids were playing. The kids were running around, and happy cries and screams were going on. Mike, in my binoculars, you got to picture this. You got the city line and the beach and the ocean. But in my binoculars, I saw all of this going on, and then in the center was the American flag waving, and Mike, it just brought me to tears sitting in my tower watching this, and just thinking about all the people who disrespect our flag, and like your last caller, all the men who died for this country. It just brought me to tears sitting on the tower watching all this going on.
And you know what? You got to keep reminding yourself, millions and millions of Americans feel just the way you and I do. Chris, we're not alone. We're not in the minority.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Get back or I'll shoot you.
The ones left inside were the pastor and his 2 daughters.
If you run, I'll shoot your family. Nobody cares whether I live or die. It's bad.
I'm not going to stand around and be a part of it anymore. Give me the gun.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
I had studied Marxist history, beginning with Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto from 1848. And when I first studied that and saw in section 1 of the manifesto what you can recognize as what's called the oppressor versus oppressed narrative of human history, a whole bunch of stuff that was taking place in our country began to become exceptionally clear to me. And I began to piece together a lot of the what I'll call militant impulse that was manifesting in society as time went on. And there's a victimhood ideology. There's constantly an effort by some individuals who have an agenda to pit groups of people against one another as victims or oppressed groups and oppressor groups. And we've seen very clearly over the past calendar year who the oppressor group is labeled to be and who the oppressed groups are labeled to be. And right now, under the auspices of diversity and inclusion training, as well as critical race theory and other narratives of American history that have been parading about throughout the country and showing up in our education system, all of those narratives seek to divide the American people by pitting people against one another into racial groups.
Yeah, it is.
It's the white versus the black. It
used to be class, division by class. Now it's division by race, by skin color. We've only. All right, everybody. Dennis Prager here, and Darren in Grand Lodge, Michigan. Hello, Darren.
Hey, Dennis. Good to talk to you again. Heard the interview with Larry yesterday, and I don't miss many of your shows. And I promptly went and made a contribution. But then today, when you were talking about, supposedly he's twisting the crime statistics.
Yeah.
Here's a little anecdotal thing here I'm just outside of Lansing, the capital of Mask again. The community college released a report that 40% of tickets issued to students, whatever that means, were to blacks, but yet they only have a 15% enrollment. Well, I think, to me, that gives credence to what Larry said and so many of others, that unfortunately the crime rate is higher.
What do you mean by tickets? You mean speeding tickets?
It didn't specify.
Yeah. Look, Larry's statistics are accurate. The L.A. Times did not refute a single one. The L.A. Times lied as clearly as one could lie. They asserted that he twisted facts about black crime rates. They offered zero evidence about it. The L.A. Times lies because it's left wing. I know this sounds bizarre to any of you that treasure truth. Every left-wing organ lies because truth is not a left-wing value. Why is that so? I know, I take it back. It was a stupid question. I was about to ask, why is it so hard to believe it? You know why? Because most of you do care about truth. So it's hard for you to believe that the LA Times doesn't, that the New York Times doesn't, that the Washington Post doesn't, that CNN doesn't, that ABC, CBS, and NBC don't. It's hard for you to believe that, and I know that. It's very hard for the decent to understand the indecent. It just is. I value truth. They don't. Today's an example. They say Larry Elder twists data about black crime. If that is true, I rescind my support for Larry Elder. Okay? How's that? But if it's not true, then you should rescind your support for the Los Angeles Times. Okay? I told you what effect it would have on me. If Larry Elder does in fact twist data on black crime, I take back my support of Larry Elder for governor of California. If he does not, you should give up your subscription to the LA Times because you're supporting a lying organization. Okay? So there you go. I've made it as clear as possible. I will tell you what I would do if the LA Times is telling the truth. You tell me what you would do if you know the LA Times is lying about Larry Elder. Jean Guerrero, that's her name. She's a liar. Get it? She's just a liar. And you know why she's a liar? Because truth doesn't matter to her. Winning against the right matters. Churchill lied to fight the Nazis, so you could lie to fight the conservatives. That's how they think. That's exactly how they think. That's why they have to call us fascists. That way they can justify their evil. There's a smoking gun I've given you today, a smoking gun, the article on Larry Elder in the LA Times. Pure, undiluted lying by a woman named Jean Guerrero, who will continue to have her job. Will Politico fact-check her? No. Will the Washington Post fact-check her? Of course not. They don't fact-check their own liars, because they're liars, the fact-check organization. Now you know what's going on. So the question is only,
are you prepared to confront it? Show the article to your beloved relatives and friends and say, this woman wrote this about Larry Elder, and if it's true, Larry Elder really should not be running and certainly not get a vote. But if it's not true, then the LA Times hires a liar to write a column. Can't you, right? It's one or the other. Either Larry lied or the LA Times lied. Which is it? Every one of you knows the answer. That's correct. Jake in Philadelphia says most people don't know what a trillion is. Very funny. You're right. It's a big number. That's what they think it is. We shouldn't have a word for it. It should be called 1,000 billion. That is correct. Glenn in Upland, California. Hi.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Prager.
Hi.
So what I told the call screen, everybody needs to kind of get on board is I gave up team sports 5 years ago, and I'll explain exactly what led me to do that. I was a Buffalo fan. I'm 39 years old, since the first time they were in the Super Bowl against the Giants in '90. And just as a little kid, that was my team. And I've stayed with them. I mean, they never won a title, and I always tell people, you're a real fan if you're with a team that never wins. Well, LaShawn McCoy was a running back, and during the pregame, he sat on his you-know-what during the national anthem. And my eyes were open then, and I said to myself, why the heck am I supporting these teams when you get a clown and a moron, an idiot like this guy who can ruin it for everyone else?
That's I'm letting you go only because of time. You're entirely right. That's exactly right. My heart goes out to those of you who love football, basketball, and baseball. It does. I love baseball. I love hockey. Those are my two sports. But some of you love it even more than I. And you should be allowed a refuge from politics. You have to understand that for the left, I've known this since I was at graduate school. That's where my eyes were opened at Columbia. Which, by the way, if it had any honor, would give up the name Columbia because it's named after Columbus. They support dropping Columbus Day, but they don't support dropping the name Columbia. It costs them too much money. But my eyes were opened then to what is being said now, and the anti-American nature of the left. It is an astonishing thing to live in such a good place for just about everybody. Yep, just about everybody, and destroy it. Because leftism is a religion, it's a substitute for Christianity in the Western world. That's all it is. But it's a bad substitute.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Las Vegas, I mean, it is open for business. It is wide open. It's unreal how different things are in a place like Las Vegas. I mean, somebody look up, Derek, see how many seats the O show at the Bellagio holds. How many seats are in that theater? The show is called O at the Bellagio. See how many seats it holds. It was packed. I mean, there's no social distancing going on in Las Vegas. There just isn't. Now, does that disturb you? Or does that make you happy? Does it bother you to know that there are communities that, like Las Vegas, that have a theater that I sat in and was in amazement at the Las Vegas production of O at the Bellagio with 1,800 seats, and it was packed. It was sold out. There weren't seats between other seats. There weren't empty seats blocked out with stupid X marks. And incidentally, on the topic of Las Vegas, may I respectfully suggest a must-see show if you like Vegas like I do. I don't do a whole lot of gambling. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I love the theaters, the shows. I love the hotels. I love the restaurants. I love the vibe of Las Vegas. The Magic of Jen Kramer at the Westgate is a must-see.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
We've had 6 months of the new administration. It is the farthest thing from moderation that the government has ever seen, and it is the fastest track to extremism that we've ever had elected.
But Kevin, how did I know that in advance? Why in my debate
because
with
I
David
told you.
French did I know this and you knew this? There was no question in my mind. So the fact that this has now happened, part of me wants to say, ha ha, but it's just too sad to say ha ha. This is something that I warned against and you warned against and others warned against because we knew that the consequences are devastating.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Topic. Yesterday, General Milley told a congressional.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager, and with me in studio is Julie Hartman, the Harvard senior, or about to be senior, rising senior, as they say, for no reasons that I quite understand. In any event, I've had her on weekly this summer. Gives you an idea of how high a regard I have for her. And you know her story. I won't repeat it now, but I think when did you first come on the show?
I know the exact date, August 10th, 2020. So.
Wow, coming on the first anniversary.
We got to have a cake or something. We should celebrate this occasion.
I couldn't agree more. Any excuse to have cake, I subscribe to. Well, Julie, it's great to have you again, and I am going to do with you what I do with very few guests, just ask you what's on your mind.
Well, today I'm inspired to talk about something based on a comment that you made a few shows ago, Dennis, and you said that there are record numbers of high school students and college students nowadays who are depressed, and that is absolutely true. And today I want to discuss why I think that is. And I hypothesize that it really has to do with this hyper-competitive, hyper-credentialized, materialistic, secular culture that a lot of people in my generation are growing up in. And I think the biggest manifestation of this culture is the obsession people have with getting into college. And look, I can speak to that from personal experience. I will readily say that for many years, my purpose in life, I really felt like, was to get into a good school. And Dennis, you would not believe the amount of hours kids nowadays spend on homework, how many APs and honors classes that they load up on. They get no sleep, the insanity of extracurricular activities, all of the activities that they're juggling. Again, this is something that I can speak to from personal experience. I played club sports for many, many years, and that world has gone completely crazy. Just the amount of hours they require out of you from such a young age. You have morning practice, afternoon practice, weekend practices, the intensity of the coaches, the level of involvement of the parents. I mean, I remember when I played water polo at these weekend tournaments, parents of kids on my team would be on the sidelines screaming at them. Just screaming at them, and they would scream at me, and they would scream at other players if we made a mistake. Now, thank God my parents weren't like that. I'm very lucky to have wonderful parents who would never do anything like that. But my parents were an anomaly. This was very common among my teammates' parents, and it really shows that the obsession to achieve is not just with the kids, but parents are living through their kids. And I think that this really has to do with the decline of religion over time. And it happened gradually, but as religion declined, I think this hyper-competitive culture came up.
Well, that isn't, I have not made that connection. I have made many connections to the secularization of society, but not that one.
Mm-hmm.
So guide me. It's an interesting theory. The
Mm-hmm.
decline of religion and the obsession with grades and extracurricular activity.
Okay. Well, here's what I think. It's not so much the subtraction of God, but it's the substitution of public opinion and public approval for God. That has become the new God that people will sacrifice anything for or do anything for. And the point I want to make is that, look, I'm not right now particularly religious. I'm still finding religion, but I can still see that when religion declines, something new enters that space. No one is an atheist in the sense that they have nothing in their life that they venerate or sanctify. The question is, what in your life are you going to venerate and sanctify? And I think for a lot of these people, it is bragging rights and the impulse to impress and to get accomplishments.
That's good. I'm thinking about that, is it as crazed in truly religious circles of evangelicals or Mormons, Orthodox Jews, Roman Catholics who were traditional? I suspect not, although it's infected some of their lives too, but nevertheless, I think your point is well taken. This obsession, but let's go back to the unhappiness one. There seems to be little lightness in a kid's life.
Mm-hmm.
What you described, look, I rebelled in high school. I did no homework for 4 years of high school. It was one of the greatest decisions of my life in retrospect. I thank God that I had the wisdom to understand the idiocy of living for school. So I graduated in the top 80% of my high school class, which for those mathematically challenged is the bottom 20%. I am thrilled. I'm coming back to Julie Hartman. This is big stuff.
Relief Factor.
ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384 is the way to contact Relief Factor. An amazing product that relieves joint and muscle pain. They have a promise. You will know in 3 weeks if it works. If it doesn't work in 3 weeks, it probably won't work, and then you cancel your order. And in the meantime, they have a 3-week price, the 3-week quick start, $19.95 plus shipping. That's at ReliefFactor.com. Read there how it's affected people's lives. 800-500-8384.
The Dennis Prager.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Some lawyer hit a little girl.
The community is left in shock as former cancer patient Sharon Blackwell was struck by an oncoming vehicle. And
Take this into evidence, sir. I need to call my wife.
You've been accused of texting while driving.
If we don't make an example out of this guy, the public will crucify us.
Before you take your daughter off life support, give God room to be God.
You're not guaranteed another day, but you have today.
Get back or I'll shoot you.
Only one's left inside for the pastor and his two daughters.
If you run, I'll shoot your family. Nobody cares whether I live or die. It's bad.
I'm not gonna stand around and be a part of it anymore. Give me the gun.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Las Vegas, I mean, it is open for business. It is wide open. It's unreal how different things are in a place like Las Vegas. I mean, somebody look up, Derek, see how many seats the O show at the Bellagio holds. How many seats are in that theater? The show is called O at the Bellagio. See how many seats it holds. It was packed. I mean, there's no social distancing going on in Las Vegas. There just isn't. Now, does that disturb you? Or does that make you happy? Does it bother you to know that there are communities that, like Las Vegas, that have a theater that I sat in and was in amazement at the Las Vegas production of O at the Bellagio with 1,800 seats, and it was packed. It was sold out. There weren't seats between other seats. There weren't empty seats blocked out with stupid X marks. And incidentally, on the topic of Las Vegas, may I respectfully suggest a must-see show if you like Vegas like I do. I don't do a whole lot of gambling. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I love the theaters, the shows. I love the hotels. I love the restaurants. I love the vibe of Las Vegas. The Magic of Jen Kramer at the Westgate is a must-see.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the air.
Hey, reminder, everybody, you could save $800 a month per family, and it's the truth. It's not a made-up figure. If you switch to Pure Talk, which I did to test it out because I couldn't believe that for $30 a month, unlimited text, unlimited talk, 6 gigabytes of data, and if you go over, they don't charge you. I couldn't believe that they'd give that price and have anything similar to T-Mobile, Verizon, or AT&T. Well, lo and behold, I got another phone with them. By the way, you can get a phone, a brand new great phone for cheap. Or keep your own phone, and of course you can keep your own number. All you do is dial pound 250 and say Dennis Prager. Pound 250 and say Dennis Prager. Pure Talk. It's superb wireless. It's nice to save money and not compromise. Julie Hartman, one of the most thoughtful young people I've had the privilege of meeting. In fact, you're one of the most thoughtful people of any age. That's why I have you on now each week. This description that Julie gave is very important. Remember, I read to you folks about the depression rates among young Americans, even pre-COVID. COVID exacerbated it. and this obsession with getting into a good college. Now, she got into Harvard, and she acknowledged you had that obsession.
I did.
So, if I may pry into your life, did it affect your happiness?
Well, it's very interesting. After I got into Harvard, I went through a period where I felt very depressed. And I kind of hate talking about it because it makes me sound like I was ungrateful or that I wasn't excited. And I was very grateful and I was excited to be going to college. But I went through this very weird period where I just felt kind of empty. And I didn't talk to a lot of people about it because I thought I wouldn't get a lot of sympathy. And frankly, I didn't have a lot of sympathy for myself. I'm like, oh, boo-hoo, you just got into Harvard and you're depressed. Like, poor thing. But I think a lot of it is that I looked back on my high school years and I was really hard on myself, and I took every honors class and I did sports, all that, and I just pushed myself to the absolute limit to get into this school or just to get into an elite school. And I just realized that I think you have this idea that if you get into an elite college, you're going to have the Midas touch. Like everything you touch is going to turn to gold and your life is going to be perfect. And I just realized that the same problems that plagued you the day before you got into Harvard plague you the day after you get into Harvard. Your life really doesn't change. And it was this moment where I went, was it worth it? Was it worth the sacrifice that I made? And that was a very powerful thought. And by the way, in many ways, I think it was. I do enjoy going to Harvard. I've met wonderful people, and I think the amount of time I spent in high school on school and sports has taught me enormous discipline. And it imparted to me a truly empowering feeling that if I work hard enough, I can do anything. But still, it's gotten totally out of control. And I did go through that period of depression because I just thought, oh my God, I'm a kid. What did I just do?
That reminds me of something I've pointed out on the Happiness Hour about money. Money, I've always said, it makes the happy happier and makes the unhappy unhappier. Because so many unhappy people think if they only had money, they'd be happy.
Right.
But you bring your unhappiness with you when you get the money. Mm-hmm. So you bring your unhappiness with you. I'm not saying you. One does, even after getting into Harvard. And then you realize, wait a minute, the problems of life don't dissipate.
No, not at all.
And that is something that people are aware of about a lot of their children today. Are you aware from your perspective? I have no idea what your answer is, and I want just the honest answer, but I have noted on my show the number of adult children, and that would include your age, alienated from parents. Are you familiar with that at all among peers?
Not so much at my age. I think, just because I've heard you talk about it so much on the show, I think that's something that happens maybe more in the late 20s. But to be honest with you, I haven't really noticed it.
No, I'm actually happy about it. But it will show up. How do kids talk about their parents?
Well, I have a lot of friends who feel that their parents push them too far. That's very related to this conversation. I know a lot of kids who have parents who really live through them and live through their accomplishments. Again, thank God my parents aren't like that, and I count my blessings. But I think I have seen a lot of kids kind of go off the rails because they work so hard and they're so trying to impress and please their parents, and they kind of they feel really unfulfilled by it. So that's where I notice it. I notice that sometimes kids will say, oh my gosh, my parents live through me, or they push me, or they make me do things I don't want to do. That's the way that I notice it, frankly.
That was my topic on the Happiness Hour.
Mm-hmm.
Living through one's children, which is a curse to the parent and it's a curse for the children. Let's go to Mike in Phoenix here. Mike, Dennis Prager with Julie Hartman. Hi.
Hi, Dennis. Thanks so much for taking my call. I just wanted to share that when I was at Harvard 25 years ago, I had a similar experience in that when I was there, I counted at least 11 people who took their lives while I was there. And it was obvious to me that what you've shared on the air is absolutely true. There is so little wisdom in a place of such knowledge and such higher learning. I found that so many people really lack perspective and were unable to get out of themselves or get out of the peer pressure to just read as much and know as much as possible to really contemplate the bigger issues in life. And I appreciate you taking Julie and having her on regularly and having these conversations, because I think you're exactly right. College is not the end-all, be-all, and we fool ourselves and oftentimes to tragic consequences when we think it is.
You're a good man. It's hard to believe 11 suicides.
God.
Do you, I mean, I believe him, but it is still frightening number. Back in a moment.
Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Topic. Yesterday, General Milley told a congressional hearing that there is no chance, very unlikely and very little motivation for the People's Republic of China on this, the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Communist Party, to assault Taiwan in the near term. Quote, there's no reason to do it militarily, and they know that. So I think the probability is probably low in the immediate near-term future. Your reaction, Senator Cotton?
Well, I think that's right. Up through the end of the Beijing Olympics in February, Russia didn't invade Crimea, and 8 months before the Sochi Olympics in 2014, they invaded it 4 days after those Olympics ended.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Surprise! Sharon and you what?
Things just happened.
My girlfriend and my best friend.
You got 30 days to grow up, son.
Nathan Hannigan, it is good to have you home.
Nona, it's Nathan.
Well, you don't mind my giving her your room, do you?
Really though, thanks for thinking of me for this position.
I thought about you first. Come on, growing up, I had a huge crush on you.
There are things that we all need to change about ourselves, but we can't blame God because He helps us change.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Hi, everybody. Let me go back to Julie in a moment. There's a call from Texas. We don't have a lot of time, but I do want to respond in it for a second. Mike in Lucas, Texas. How do you draw a balance as a parent? So for whatever it's worth, tell you what I did. I told my kids I didn't give a damn about their grades. I didn't even give a damn about what college they got into or if they went to college. I only cared about their character. I didn't let them waste time on a lot of TV or junk, food for the mind. And that was it. It was not balanced at all. If you're not doing homework, what are you doing? Okay, that was my question. But whether they did homework or not was not of no great interest to me. Character über alles. Back to Julie and the issue here. What did you want to add? We're talking about the depression among a lot of young people and getting into a place like Harvard. Go ahead.
Well, what I want to emphasize is no wonder kids are depressed. With this hyper-competitive culture, they feel like their only purpose in life is to achieve, and that makes them, I think, largely feel very hollow. And another point I want to make, I think this just kind of came to me now. I also think a lot of the reason why we see so many people my age out there protesting and joining social justice movements is because I think they desperately want an identity outside of this hyper-competitive culture. They want their fix of purpose beyond themselves. They want community. They want to relate to other people. Things that we used to get from religion that we really don't have anymore. It's that desire to grasp at these things that largely people in my generation have grown up not having. I think that's a lot of the appeal of the social movements we're seeing.
Yeah, I certainly agree with you. I think there's also another factor which you and I should talk about on the air. We've talked about it off the air. And that is this almost preternatural non-concern with finding a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
To me, and to every generation prior to me, that would be incredible. That's the normal course of events, is to want a boyfriend or a girlfriend when you're 18.
Well, I can tell you that I had no interest in that because I had no time to have any interest in that. I had all my Saturday nights were spent doing homework, and a lot of my friends too. None of my friends in high school dated because they were just so busy. They didn't have time to add a boyfriend to the extracurricular list. A boyfriend isn't going to get them into college.
God, is that important? Wow. Julie Hartman at julie-hartman.com. She answers her mail.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Men and women died in Vietnam or the other wars that we fought for our flag.
Hey, what a great call. What a great point that is. To disrespect those men who spilled blood, who left their limbs on the battlefield the way the left is doing. Chris, you're on The Mike Gallagher Show. How you doing, Chris?
Good, Mike. It's a nice honor to talk to you finally.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. Honored to speak to you as well.
Mike, I'll make this real quick. I'm probably not all that great at talking on air, but all I am is a lifeguard on the ocean front in southeast North Carolina.
Right.
And I just want to say that, this weekend we had outstanding weather. The crowds were fantastic. Everyone was just well behaved.
Wow.
And Mike, I was on my tower and I was looking north, and I saw the thousands and thousands of people with their umbrellas, thousands of people in the water just enjoying. The kids were playing. The kids were running around, and happy cries and screams were going on. Mike, in my binoculars, you got to picture this. You got the city line and the beach and the ocean. But in my binoculars, I saw all of this going on, and then in the center was the American flag waving, and it just, Mike, it just brought me to tears sitting in my tower watching this, and just thinking about all the people who disrespect our flag and like your last caller, all the men who died for this country. It just brought me to tears sitting on the tower watching all this going on.
And you know what? You got to keep reminding yourself, millions and millions of Americans feel just the way you and I do. Chris, we're not alone. We're not in the minority.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Get back or I'll shoot you.
Only one's left inside for the pastor and his 2 daughters.
If you run, I'll shoot your family. Nobody cares whether I live or die. It's bad.
I'm not going to stand around and be a part of it anymore. 3. Give me the gun.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
I had studied Marxist history, beginning with Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto from 1848. And when I first studied that and saw in section 1 of the manifesto what you can recognize as what's called the oppressor versus oppressed narrative of human history, a whole bunch of stuff that was taking place in our country began to become exceptionally clear to me. And I began to piece together a lot of the what I'll call militant impulse that was manifesting in society as time went on. And there's a victimhood ideology. There's constantly an effort by some individuals who have an agenda to pit groups of people against one another as victims or oppressed groups and oppressor groups. And we've seen very clearly over the past calendar year who the oppressor group is labeled to be and who the oppressed groups are labeled to be. And right now, under the auspices of diversity and inclusion training, as well as critical race theory and other narratives of American history that have been parading about throughout the country and showing up in our education system, all of those narratives seek to divide the American people by pitting people against one another into racial groups.
Yeah, it is
It's the white versus the black. It
used to be class, division by class. Now it's division by race, by skin color. We've only begun to scratch the surface. We're going to go deep dive on what's happening inside the U.S. military and why this man took the courageous step of writing the book Irresistible Revolution. Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lohmeyer.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Some lawyer hit a little girl.
The community is left in shock as former cancer patient Sharon Blackwell was struck by an oncoming vehicle.
Take this into evidence, sir.
I need to call my wife. You've been accused of texting while driving.
We don't make an example out of this guy, the public will crucify us.
Before you take your daughter off life support, give God room to be God.
You're not guaranteed another day, but you have today.
Get back or I'll shoot you.
Only one's left inside for the pastor and his 2 daughters.
If you run, I'll shoot your family. Nobody cares whether I live or die. It's bad.
I'm not going to stand around and be a part of it anymore. 3. Give me the gun.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Las Vegas, I mean, it is open for business. It is wide open. It's unreal how different things are in a place like Las Vegas. I mean, somebody look up, Derek, see how many seats the O show at the Bellagio holds. How many seats are in that theater? The show is called O at the Bellagio. See how many seats it holds. It was packed. I mean, there's no social distancing going on in Las Vegas. There just isn't. Now, does that disturb you? Or does that make you happy? Does it bother you to know that there are communities that, like Las Vegas, that have a theater that I sat in and was in amazement at the Las Vegas production of O at the Bellagio with 1,800 seats, and it was packed.
Hello, my friends. Dennis Prager here with a man who needs no introduction. There are a few people of whom you can say that. He's one of them, Mark Levin. But just in case you want one, nationally syndicated talk show host of Levin TV, chairman of Landmark Legal Foundation, host of the Fox News show Life, Liberty, and Levin. New book, it's already #1 on Amazon in the country. American Marxism, which is a little depressing that a book would be called American Marxism and not be hysterical. Is that a fair summary of a reaction?
Dennis, first of all, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Every 2 years. We got to do this a little bit more often.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't come up with this title till about 3 months before I finished the book. I had other titles in mind, and then when I finished it, I said, well, what is this? And then I went back and re-edited the book. It's American Marxism. It is the Americanization of Marxism, not in every respect, but in enough, in the fundamentals. And that's based on the research I did in this book. This is the thickest book I've ever written. It is the most important book I've ever written. It is, to me, something that I hope people will take their time, page by page, and go through before they get to the last chapter where I have some solutions in mind. But I want them to know what's happening to this country, that this oppressor, oppressed, victim, a perpetrator, class warfare, caste system that the Democrats are pushing in academia and the media, they come from someplace. They're not just made up. And where do they come from? You know, from the time, Dennis, of the early progressives, they've tried to hide who they really are. Not so much anymore. But so they called themselves progressives, which of course is the opposite of what they are. But every one of the major intellectuals at the turn of the 18th to the 1900 centuries, the early intellectuals, whether it's John Dewey or Woodrow Wilson, they admired Marxism. I mean, John Dewey, who's responsible for the disastrous educational system we have today, he even went to Moscow in 1928 when Stalin was, people knew what Stalin was. He was a murderous thug. And he praised their educational system. Their educational system was brainwashed. And he comes back to America, he writes a piece for the New Republic, and he says, we ought to be paying attention to what they're doing there. You know, the community idea, social activism. We can't teach science and mathematics and literature and avoid. Objectively, there has to be a reason for this. And so he started all that. And he got it from all places, Russia. And so when you look at these things, critical theory, critical race theory, the degrowth movement, which is really behind so-called climate change and the Green New Deal, even the transgender movement today, not all transgenders, obviously, but it is a movement. It's in our schools. This notion of a binary social contract, they argue that's under attack, or lack crit, the open borders, that the people who are here, American citizens, particularly whites, that we are the illegal aliens and we stole the land from the indigenous people. This stuff is resonating. This stuff is taking the form of executive orders right out of the Oval Office. This stuff is being taught by tenured professors all across this country to our children. And this stuff is being regurgitated by the media. And so I said, well, what is it? Well, it's American Marxism. We got to call it what it is, or we're not going to be able to address it.
What is their self-image? Would they plead guilty to being Marxist?
Many of them do. Many of them don't. It's a great question.
Yeah, it is an important question. So the ones who don't, do the editors of the New York Times, which is a Marxist newspaper, Would they say you guys are hysterical? We're not Marxist?
Well, they'll get around to trashing me. The answer is yes. They'll say, "Oh, the Red Scare, McCarthyism," and that's why I wrote the book the way I did. I'll say, "Well, what about this guy and this guy and this guy?" I quote them. I quote their books. I mean, I explain them and provide commentary. These things, they don't just come out of thin air, out of the ether. They come from people, from scholars, from intellectuals, from activists. I mean, 2 out of the 3 founders, as you know, Black Lives Matter, announced that they're Marxists, and people say, okay, ho-hum, and they yawn. I say, not okay, no, let's look into this. Antifa, Marxist anarchist. Bernie Sanders is a Marxist. What's this democratic socialism stuff? The Squad, that's not a squad, it's a cabal of America-hating, anti-Semitic, anti-white Marxists. And so it is important that we take the terminology back. It's important we use the correct language so we know exactly what we're dealing with. People start to learn about it if we are to push back and hopefully claw back and defeat it. And so to answer your question, I've spent a lot of time over the years addressing the New York Times because it is, as you know, it's the point of the spear for the media. It is a horrendous record. It is a poisonous corporation. Whether 1932, as I've written about before, how their man Walter Durrani in Moscow was basically a transcriber for Stalin. He was on his payroll. He covered up what was happening to the Ukrainians. They were being slaughtered. They were being starved to death. Solzhenitsyn writes about how even in the Gulag they could hear these people scratching at the gates, begging to get in. They were just dying on the streets because Stalin couldn't convert them. The peasants in Ukraine did not want to give up their land. They'd had it for hundreds and hundreds of years, so he starved them to death. And the New York Times not only didn't cover it up, it promoted it.
It denied that anyone was starving.
That's correct. They said it was just a bad year. You look at what they did with the Holocaust, there have been 3 brilliant professors who've written about it, and one added an additional point in the tablet, who've written one of the books. The New York Times covered up the Holocaust. And, in fact, its Berlin reporter was very sympathetic to Hitler and the Nazis. And she has had to dig and dig and dig to come up with this information. She's a professor. Other professors have pointed this out. The idea that this corporation, I don't care if it's a media corporation or what kind of corporation it is held in such high esteem by the Democrats, by other media organizations, is unconscionable. Because when it came to some of the most horrendous genocides in mankind's history, the New York Times either celebrated one of the mass killers or helped cover up some of the mass killing. And so I take it as a badge of honor if they turn around and they say, well, we're not Marxists. Then what the hell are you?
Will they review your book?
I don't know, and I don't care. They haven't reviewed one yet.
I agree with you about not caring. It's completely irrelevant. I'm just curious, have they reviewed any of your books?
No. I've had, this is my 9th book, 8 of them are New York Times bestsellers, 6 of them in a row have been number 1, and they haven't reviewed one.
Right, that's my point.
They have to,
I didn't know the answer, but that was my point.
Yeah. Well, they have to figure out what to do, to pretend it doesn't exist or to trash it. So whatever comes, comes. This book is written for your audience, my audience, for the American people, moderate Democrats, libertarians. I don't care what you are. If you love this country, it is time to put aside your disputations. These are mostly surface-level disagreements. It is not a surface-level disagreement when people are brainwashing your children to hate themselves or to hate other people. It is not a minor issue when the border is wide open because of the Democrat Party's desire to change the demographics of this country. And if you raise it, they trash you. But it's true. There's no other explanation.
There's no other
That's why they don't open their arms to the Cubans, because they figure they'll vote Republican.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Don't come.
Right.
Guatemala, come. El Salvador, come. Cuba, don't come.
It's amazing. So
it's brazen.
The media in this country have a whole chapter on that, Chapter 6. This what they call this public policy or public journalism. People should read about this. It's absolutely shocking. I mean, they make it brazenly clear. We're not here to report the news. We're here to report something with our attitude, our opinion, to advance progressivism. And this has been going on for decades. It's reached its pinnacle right now because you have relatively stupid young people, you know, the Chuck Todds, the Stephanopouloses, the Don Lemons and so forth, who are not smart enough to sort of cover up their attitudes. They're out in the open. And there's a reason for this. This is what they're taught in our journalism school. This is what they're taught by the owners or managers of these various press platforms like Zucker and over at the New York Times. This is what they get Pulitzer Prizes for. So the media are thoroughly corrupt. And I explain why. It's obviously they're ideological, but where did that come from? And it comes from professors and universities and a school of thought that they have embraced, which actually goes back to John Dewey again.
Yes. All right, my friends, we're going to continue with Mark Levin. The book is American Marxism, and as I noted at the outset, by the way, just so you all know, with my own precious money, I bought the Audible. I have the hardcover, and I bought the Audible. The book is up at DennisPrager.com, American Marxism.
All right, let me get you honey. Honey.
Honey. How much? How much?
Streaming on Salem Now.
Fiance? No, I can't be your fiance.
You're gonna go. You're gonna be my fiance, and you're gonna be the most amazing, fascinating, most successful man ever. We're only gonna be there for a few hours, eat dinner, and I promise we'll have the best breakup of all time.
My baby, my princess. Oh, booyah!
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
Things just happened.
My girlfriend and my best friend.
You got 30 days to grow up, son.
Nathan Hannigan. It is good to have you home.
Nona, it's Nathan.
Well, you don't mind my giving her your room, do you?
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Donald Rumsfeld is famous for many things. Before Donald Trump, there was Newt Gingrich in the 2012 campaign, demonstrating hostility to the media and confrontation with the media. But before there was Newt Gingrich, there was Donald Rumsfeld, demonstrating command of the media. Most famous for his combination of command and concise knowledge is this cut, which is his most famous response to a question.
There are reports that there is no evidence of a direct link between Baghdad and some of these terrorist organizations.
There are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know.
Excuse me, but is this an unknown unknown?
I'm not.
Several unknowns, and I'm just
I'm
wondering.
not
This is an
going. I'm
unknown
not going to
unknown.
say which it is.
But Mr. Secretary,
You know, I'm right here. I'm right here.
See, Rumsfeld knew exactly what he was doing. It makes perfect sense, and that's why his memoir is known as Known Unknowns. But for the full tutorial on how to deal with the media, here is a press situation with Donald Rumsfeld on April the 11th, 2003. Listen to how he deals with a hostile press.
I picked up a newspaper today, and I couldn't believe it. I read 8 headlines that talked about chaos, violence, unrest, and it just was henny penny. The sky is falling. I've never seen anything like it. And here is a country that's being liberated.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
When did you wake up and say, hang on, this is not good?
Well, like I said earlier, I've been in for over 15 years. the first 14 years of my career, I was in the Air Force, was in the flying community, and then came into the Space Force. Every unit that I've ever been in, all of my professional interactions with people during the preponderance of my career have been highly professional, not politicized. We focus on a mission that unifies us. We wear the same uniform, and we go out and do our job every day. And when
True.
Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here with Mark Levin. His book is just out, and of course it's #1 in the country, American Marxism. And I noted at the very beginning of our dialogue here, the interview, that it is not at all hysteria to speak of American Marxism. It is, you know, I don't know if you know this. I studied Marxism. Oddly enough, I was at the Russian Institute of Columbia. And I never thought that my knowledge of the Soviet Union, my ability to read Pravda, would guide me in American life. It was the furthest thing from my mind. And it turned out, Mark, to be, unfortunately, prescient to have majored in Marxism and learned how to read Pravda. That's now how I now read the LA Times or the New York Times. I'll give you an example. I mentioned this on my show today. Here's a pure lie. It's not a white lie. It's a pure lie. In today's Los Angeles Times, one of its columnists says Larry Elder twists facts, those are her words, with regard to black crime. She has a link to Larry's facts. No refutation, just a link to what Larry brought as facts. In other words, it's a pure lie. He doesn't twist facts. But they publish it as if it's a truism.
And Larry is such a class act. But look, they do the same. Let's look across the board. Do they ever tell the truth? I mean, let's look at the voting rules here. They never explain what H.R. 1 or S1 actually have in it, because the American people would be repulsed. No signature comparison, registering 16 and 17-year-olds, allowing people who are individuals to register, not citizens per se, no cleansing of voting lists if people move or die. You can vote in any precinct in the state that you want, and it goes on and on and on. They never talk about that. The media never talk about it. Instead, they say, if you oppose what the Democrats want to do, Jim Crow and all the rest of it. As conversely, they never talk about what's in the Republican proposals. It's always pseudo-journalism. It's always a fight over something that they create, the narrative, and so forth. And that's part of the problem. If we had a halfway honest media, I think we'd be doing okay in this country.
That's right.
But it's not a halfway. It is a complete corrupt propaganda operation with very minor exceptions. And Larry Elder, by the way, would be a hell of a governor. He'd be a really, really good governor. That's one of the reasons they attack him.
That's right. But they lie about him. I don't even care if they attack him. They just make up they make up things as they do about all of us. So go on.
Dennis, in the first chapter I say, and you're an expert on Marx, and I've been writing about Marx for years, I point out Marx was wrong about everything.
Yes.
Everything.
Exactly.
He wasn't right about anything.
No.
And so when you look at these Marxist regimes, the poverty, the inhumanity, the police state, the prisons, the attack on free speech and so forth, this is why they don't want to be associated with it. But we have to associate them with it, regardless of what they say about us or call us. They are reading from a different book than the rest of us, and they want to push this on us. Now they have breached our elementary schools, and that ought to be a red line. And I think for many people it is a red line, But we can't have disparate, parents out there in disparate school districts fighting. We have to unite, and that's the point of the book. We need a movement. We have to network. We have to communicate with each other. I'm not saying change your life. There are things you can do at your desk. You can file complaints with the IRS. You can get FOIA information. There are things we can do. And I say in the last chapter, I have an idea. Why don't we steal some of their tactics? Use the BDS movement against colleges and universities. Use the BDS movement against some of their friendly corporations. They show up in shareholder meetings en masse. We should show up at shareholder meetings en masse. They show up at school boards en masse. We don't do enough of that. I've been arguing now almost 2 months for cameras in the classroom. It's been picked up by others, and that's a good thing. If the cops are going to have cameras, if courtrooms have cameras, not all of them, but enough of them, the reason most of us know that they've been teaching critical race theory isn't because some scholar wrote about it. It's because we saw it right on our monitors. The parents saw what their kids were learning and said, what the hell is this? Okay, why shouldn't there be transparency? The NEA and the AFT are our enemy. They are at war with our children. That's why our test scores, worldwide comparison, suck. That's why they oppose school choice in the inner city. They are power unto themselves. They are laced with this Marxist attitude. They are an appendage of the Democrat Party. They are a political machine. Have you ever wondered why they have in-service day on Election Day? It's so the teachers can go to the polls and work the precincts. That's why. Well, you know what? They all work for us. And it's about time we look at the contracts, we look at tenure. It's about time we look at how they choose teachers, how they promote teachers. Same with colleges and universities. Hundreds of billions of our dollars go into these places, and guess what? We're the only ones excluded from knowing everything. Well, why should we do that? Republican legislatures, California is a tough place, but in Republican states, they ought to start clawing back. They ought to start cutting their budgets. They ought to start oversight and monitor. We ought to use our FOIA laws and so forth to find out how faculty hire faculty. But why are they tenured at such an early time, 1 or 2 years in? It's ridiculous. It's time that we put them on their heels. There's a lot of things we can do as individuals, but there's a lot more things we can do in what I call creating community committees. Doesn't that sound very Marxist, Dennis? Yes, it does, because we need to do some of the things that they do without selling out our principles.
What about simply taking your kids out of school and homeschooling them?
Well, some people can do it and some people can't. If you're a single parent and you're working hard for a living, it becomes very, very difficult. There are ways to get around that, I agree. But what about we hit them on all fronts? I don't want to give up these schools that we pay for. Perhaps we need to slash some of their budgets, but things need to change. And they're only going to change if we go on offense. My favorite movie is Patton. And what happens, Dennis? He defeats Rommel in North Africa, a massive bank. What does he say? He says, Rommel, I read your damn book. Okay. Well, this book is filled with Marxists and others. I've read their books. If you saw my house, they were piled up, one pile after another. We need to know who they are. We need to know what they're preaching. And they are preaching some hideous things today as I speak. And it's time that we at least look at what they're doing, understand what they're doing, and if we're going to be successful in at least trying to claw our way back, we need to hit them strategically and tactically.
You suffer from clear thinking and something else that we both share. We love this country, and we don't understand how anybody wouldn't. So, folks, the book is American Marxism. The author is Mark Levin. We'll talk soon. Keep up the good work.
It's a great honor. And by the way, I and my family love you. You're terrific. Thank you, Dennis.
That's very kind. Means a lot to me. I thank you. American Marxism is up at DennisPrager.com. We continue. All right, well...
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
When did you wake up and say, hang on, this is not good?
Well, like I said earlier, I've been in for over 15 years. The first 14 years of my career, I was in the Air Force, was in the flying community, and then came into the Space Force. Every unit that I've ever been in, all of my professional interactions with people during the preponderance of my career have been highly professional, not politicized. We focus on a mission that unifies us. We wear the same uniform and we go out and do our job every day. And when I noticed personally these things really rapidly beginning to change was in the past calendar year, but specifically in the aftermath of George Floyd's death. What you saw in broader society in the form of social justice activism pouring into the streets, the disruption of civil liberties, for example, and the dialogue, if you want to call it that ensued in the aftermath is the very thing that I saw just spill over into active duty military units. Now, I'll be clear that every unit is different, every leader is different, every base is different. But that's when I was really keen on seeing this happen. Now, I've been in academia for the past 2 years. And so what I'm able to share is simply one man's perception of when this is. I left academia in June of last year and came out to my current base and have had these experiences. But it's my sense that the seeds are planted long ago. This is a subversive agenda.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
218 out with him. Headed for the house. He's got a hostage.
You believe in God, Chip. Why does a kid die? Drug dealer get off scot-free.
Well, the only answer to that is there isn't a God.
You have a choice. You can either let the darkness overtake you, or you can be a bearer of the light.
So just think of it as calling for backup.
Officer down, officer down. You're the one God's called to be a shepherd.
Keeper, do you know who I am? You are the author? I am. I don't know you. Keeper, it's your son.
Hurry it up. Time is short.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
And so, Don, a question I get a lot, and people are emailing us, freedom@charliekirk.com right now, is how is your family holding up in the midst of this? How is your father holding up? I mean, after delivering results for our country, doing everything he said he was going to do, people kind of take me aside. They say, hey, how are they hanging in there? Any insight you can give us, Don, into that?
Yeah, listen, we're doing well, maybe because we're a bit masochistic. We sort of like to be in the fight, and more importantly, because the fight is worth it. I mean, you brought up, opening this thing, my book, Liberal Privilege, like it's literally about all of these things, whether it's the sort of faulty persecutions, whether it's the ongoing aspects of this. I mean, look at what's going on even, take January 6th, okay? And say what you want about it. Like if you commit a crime, you should commit a crime. But the FBI and the highest levels of law enforcement, anyone who is, if you were
The show, not just listen. Go to townhall.com and click on the Town Hall TV button.
Yes, everybody, I'm Dennis Prager. So I just had Mark Levin on. I ended by saying something to him that is worthy of a few more moments. We have a lot in common, obviously. Our values, the most obvious. I think a clarity of thought. But I mentioned as well, we love this country. How do you not love what's good? Oh, but America has racism. America had slavery. Do you understand what a fool you are if that's your response? Of course you don't understand it. How many fools think they're fools? America had slavery, therefore America is not a good country. To say that means you live in sort of a make-believe world. Every country had slavery. As I have said so often, the question is not, did your country have slavery? It's, when did it abolish it? This country became the freest country on earth for black people as well as white people. That's what it became. Nothing becomes something overnight. When the Catholic Church converted Europeans, the last group it converted were the Germanic tribes. It's not easy to convert horrific groups. Yes. And you know what the obstacle was? The Germanic tribes didn't like the Ten Commandments. They particularly didn't like thou shalt not murder. Yeah. They thought that killing was perfectly legitimate. Morality wasn't determined by some objective standard above every group. It was determined by the strong. And by the way, if there's no God, why is that not accurate? You have to go to college to think, oh, I don't need a God to tell me do not murder. I could figure that out. I don't want to be murdered. Well, so what? What bank robber wants to be robbed? What rapist wants to be raped? What thief wants to be stolen from? You learn to be stupid at college. I mean that literally. That argument is stupid. Because you don't want something to happen to you, therefore it is wrong to do it to another? No. It's wrong to do it to another if you choose to have that so. But it's not inherently logical. Nobody who does bad wants the bad done to them. What happened? They missed the argument? They didn't go to graduate school? They didn't quite catch it? Oh, gee, I won't rape because I wouldn't want to be raped. How come it never occurred to them? God, the idiocy we bathe in. So, how do you not love this country? Made the freest country in the world. Let's make something clear. The bad in America was universal. The good in America was unique. Okay? In one sentence, you have now removed the entire left-wing lie about this country. But as I have said also on many occasions, every degree you get in an American college is a degree in ingratitude. Get BA in ingratitude, get a master's in ingratitude, and you get a PhD in ingratitude. And let me tell you something. An advanced degree in ingratitude makes you a very, very serious a-hole. Yeah, that's what it does. Because there's nothing quite ugly as ingratitude. Ingrates are a special breed of scummy people. And that's what the left is. A bunch of scummy ingrates. Name me an exception on the left. Not liberals. I say it 5 times a day. Liberals are weak. Liberals are naive. Liberals are cowardly. But they're not the scum of the left. There's a difference. Nerve Renew is a product that I have endorsed. So much so that I asked them to advertise because the product had a very positive impact on me. I am among those who, for whatever reason, although I know my reason, they're called neuromas, tingling and numbness in the feet. Some have it in the hands. If you have that, this product enabled me to throw away inserts in my shoes that I had used for years. I'd like you to try it. 2 weeks for free and a 1-year money-back guarantee, if that's what you have, the tingling and numbness, in an extremity, as they say. NerveRenew.com.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
If you're longing for a place that feels like pre-pandemic America, I'll tell you right now, Las Vegas is one of them. What's your community? Tell me what your town is like and how you would respond to being in a theater with 1,800 other people, elbow to elbow. Here's Mike. What's the upstate of South Carolina, Mike, life like, Mike?
Mike, it is wide open for business, baby. We are rocking and rolling, and we cannot get enough people to work. So come on down here and grab yourself a job.
I love it. That makes me happy. Coming back to work makes me happy. Thank you, Mike.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Joe Biden was sold as a moderate. People that had worked with Joe Biden back in the day said, "Oh, I've known Joe for years. He's okay. He's fine."
Listen, when he got the hair plugs, he flipped. A long time ago, he was bald as an egg, and he got hair plugs. And I believe those hair plugs were from a Chinese lab in the Wuhan province, and things started to go screwy, and he flipped.
So he said. I don't know that that's true. I think he hid maybe who he was for a long time. A lot of liberals did in the 70s and 80s.
Wait. First of all, he's nobody. He has no values. Let's not kid ourselves. He's not a Marxist. He is a husk of a person, and he will just do. That's the whole point of your article at townhall.com. People are running him and steering him, and he doesn't have the whisper of what we would call courage or conviction.
Right. Well, and because he can't get the stuff kicked out fast enough. I mean, they've attacked so many different areas of culture and life all at once, and I think this is part of the blowback that is causing parental communities to rise up. You know, one of the things I'm most excited about, to be candid, out of all this, is to see the growth of middle-class black parents debating CRT to their own school boards. There's something very powerful about a father and a mother, married black couple, living in a suburb and being part of a community and saying to a school board, what you're in essence trying to do is teach my child to be a racist.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Don't you get tired of commercials screaming at you to buy gold now with inflated promises on future values? In an
Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. JR in Columbus, Ohio, or Indigenous Ohio, as it is now called.
Yes, sir. By the way, Suzette is an absolute kindred spirit and a gem.
I agree. All of our screeners are gems, or they don't screen for me. We only have
Agreed.
gems. Thank you.
That is an understatement. So the reason I called is about 10 years ago I started listening to you, Dennis, and I didn't ever think I was naive. I just thought everybody was liberal. And it took you to understand there is a humongous difference between liberal and left. And I had so many liberal friends right before Trump was elected. The moment he was elected, and I don't broadcast it, it's not like I'm walking into a restaurant with a MAGA hat on. They all knew my personality and my politics. I got cut loose by 7 out of 8 of them. And these are people I knew for literally 10 to 15 years. Our kids played together. It just made me physically sick. And every year I think, it can't get any worse. So here's what I did, Dennis. I stopped saying the word, it can't get any worse. And all that I can say to you, Dennis, is I have raised 2 beautiful, smart, strong, young adults. And all that I told them was, I want you to know the difference between common sense and stupid. I started telling them that at 10. And guess what happened? They turned out pretty good.
That's a great way to raise them. I reflect on what people like JR tell me. People hating people, pushing them out of their lives, including parents, because they voted for and or supported Donald Trump. With Donald Trump no longer in office, I have no political axe to grind. There is something wrong with those people. I can't fully explain it, to be honest. The self-righteousness and irrationality of the hatred of Donald Trump and of the half of this country that voted for him only reflects on them. It is no reflection on us. And I say it with sadness because a lot of these people mean a lot or meant a lot to many of you. Do you know that to this day I cannot fully explain what I never used at the time and now I do use it, and it has no political agenda. He's not in office. Trump derangement syndrome. You actually became irrational on the issue of Donald Trump. He's a fascist, dictator, threat to democracy. All of those were gigantic lies of nonsense. And none of them panned out, did they? Not one of them. Everything said about him turned out to be a lie. I mean, all the big things. Yes, he fooled around with women. Oh, is that disqualifying now for office? Really? Did anybody play around with as many women in office as John F. Kennedy? He's a hero to the left. So give me a break. And by the way, I don't think it disqualifies Kennedy. Many years ago, I wrote an essay. Many years ago, Adultery in Politicians, probably 30 years ago. It's in my book of essays, 44 essays on 44 subjects. Think a second time. Adultery tells me nothing about whether a person will be a good leader. Nothing. From King David to who's ever in office at any given time. Not only that, fidelity tells me nothing about whether a person will be a good leader. Jimmy Carter is a gigantic fool. Gigantic fool. He's been faithful his entire life. You conservatives who believe there is some link between fidelity and ability to be a leader are fooling yourselves. Yes, and I'm addressing this to conservatives, some of whom still believe this. You can't give me one example of it being accurate. There is zero connection between fidelity and being a good leader. Zero. Leaders are leaders, and fidelity is fidelity. They're not related. And by the way, for the record, I'm faithful and pro-fidelity. Just for the record. There's no link between whether you drink and you'll be a good leader or not. Okay? And I don't drink. The inability of people to think clearly is one of the great problems of life. People believe what they want to believe, as opposed to what the evidence shows. That's 100% true on the left, and it's about 50% true on the right. There's a big difference between 100% and 50%. People on the right who told me for years that pornography led to rape. Really? You know how much rape there is in the Arab world and there's no pornography? You know how little rape there is in Scandinavia where there's a lot of pornography? I'm not defending pornography. I'm defending truth-telling. Any more than I'm defending adultery. I'm offending truth-telling. Donald Trump was a great president, my friends, because he did great things for this country, which is all I want from a president. That's all. I don't ask if my surgeon is faithful to his wife. I ask how good he is at surgery. We'll be back.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
I had studied Marxist history, beginning with Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto from 1848. And when I first studied that and saw in section 1 of the manifesto what you can recognize as what's called the oppressor versus oppressed narrative of human history, a whole bunch of stuff that was taking place in our country began to become exceptionally clear to me. And I began to piece together a lot of the what I'll call militant impulse that was manifesting in society as time went on. And there's a victimhood ideology. There's constantly an effort by some individuals who have an agenda to pit groups of people against one another as victims or oppressed groups and oppressor groups. And we've seen very clearly over the past calendar year who the oppressor group is labeled to be and who the oppressed groups are labeled to be. And right now, under the auspices of diversity and inclusion training, as well as critical race theory and other narratives of American history that have been parading about throughout the country and showing up in our education system, all of those narratives seek to divide the American people by pitting people against one another into racial groups.
Yeah,
It's the white versus the black.
It used to be class, division by class. Now it's division by race, by skin color. We've only begun to scratch the surface. We're going to go deep dive on what's happening inside the U.S. military and why this man took the courageous step of writing the book Irresistible Revolution. Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lohmeyer.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Some lawyer hit a little girl.
The community is left in shock as former cancer patient Sharon Blackwell was struck by an oncoming vehicle.
Take this into evidence, sir.
I need to call my wife. You've been accused of texting while driving.
If we don't make an example out of this guy, the public will crucify us.
Before you take your daughter off life support, give God room to be God.
You're not guaranteed another day, but you have today.
Get back or I'll shoot you.
Only one's left inside for the pastor and his 2 daughters.
If you run, I'll shoot your family. Nobody cares whether I live or die. It's bad.
I'm not going to stand around and be a part of it anymore. Give me the gun.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Las Vegas, I mean, it is open for business. It is wide.
Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager, ruminating about life with you. I just was, I see a tweet of a comment by Ann Coulter, one of the fastest, sharpest minds I have ever encountered in my life. Belongs to that woman. The secret weapon of the Democrat Party is the Republican Party. Even if it's not fully true, and it is not fully true, but it has been largely true, it is hilarious. It is dark. The woman has a very dark and sharp wit. Frank in Beverly Thrills, California. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, sir. You're on the air.
Oh, how are you, Mr. Dennis?
Thank you very well.
I have a question for you. First and foremost, what do you think about the German paying reparation to the Jewish people? What do you think about that? Do you think it brings kind of closure to the Jewish people?
Well, nothing.
Why do you think American has not paid reparation to black people in this country?
That's a very fair question. I wish I had more time than just this final segment. German reparations to Jews was done right after the Holocaust. They had murdered 6 million Jews. Needless to say, there was no mass murder of blacks in America. Slavery is bad enough, but it's not the same as mass murder. So it's not exactly comparable in that regard. Secondly, they stole all of the property of all the Jews that they murdered in Poland, Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, etc. So they were paying right away for what they had stolen. Reparations for blacks today is 150 years later. America paid an incredible price to end that slavery. The death of hundreds of thousands of its young people and the impoverishment of their families. If this were the generation of slavery, I would be for paying blacks. But it's 150 years later. And whom do you pay? Do you pay Oprah Winfrey? Does a white guy whose parents came from Italy pay? Thank you for listening. I'm Dennis Prager.